I had access to an early build of AC Rally, and over the last couple of days I went through what this game has to offer. So I'll go through the content, tuning systems, physics, driving mechanics, and really explore what this game has to offer, and I guess what makes each car unique. The sim was officially announced at the Sim Racing Expo in Germany, and now it's available in early access. Based on the information we have, the full release is expected within the next 18 months. And after launch, the developers plan to expand it with over 30 cars, new locations, and plenty of additional content. So if you decide to get an early release, this is what you will get. And I guess let's just start with the racing modes. The game encourages you to explore every car on every location, something that many early access titles don't really do. There are not that many locations right now, but more are expected in the future. There are several main modes, AC Rally events divided into locations, cars, and rally weekends. And the differences between them are not that huge, but they each challenge you to drive a specific car on a specific location in specific conditions. For example, the locations mode offers 10 events per area, the cars mode gives you 5 challenges per car, and rally weekends focus on the types of car. Front-wheel drive cars, rear-wheel drive cars, or even four-wheel drive cars across 5 different challenges. This design encourages you to use the full range of cars in every type of conditions, which is kind of great to really understand how each one behaves. Every car really feels distinct and performs completely differently. In the race part of the menu, there is also Rally, Time Attack, and Free Practice modes. Rally gives you a straightforward single stage run, and you can also expand that into a full rally weekend. Time Attack would work like a classic time trial where you choose the stage and the car and chase the fastest result. And Free Practice is a simple open practice option where you can learn the course at your own pace. And that's one of the strongest aspects of this title. Even though the car roster isn't massive, let's be honest, there are only 10 cars. But instead of focusing on the amount of content, I think we should really appreciate the driving mechanics and overall the physics of this sim. And to be fair with you, I haven't driven every car on every location yet, but from what I've tested, each car feels truly unique. The settings also play a huge role in fine-tuning handling. I mostly stuck with the default setup, which are most likely fine for beginners, but if you want to get really into it, there are definitely a lot of tuning options that you can go with. For instance, I noticed that my tires were overheating pretty early, which meant something was off. I tried tweaking the tuning menu, but couldn't really get it quite right. I probably should have experimented with different tire compounds. I mean, softs are fine for short runs, but mediums might be better for longer stages, since, of course, they hold up better. But in this early release, we were encouraged to use only the soft tires, since the different compounds are still work in progress. So I just decided to stick what the developers recommended, and I didn't really want to test the features that might get changed before the full release. Even with that limitation, it's clear that the tuning will play a major role in this sim. Understanding what each setting does will be key to getting the most out of every car. And I'm sure presets and shared setups will be available later on, which will definitely help a lot of guys out there. And of course, there are also a lot of settings that can let you adjust the camera angles and few other visual preferences, just like in, well, to be honest, in most racing titles these days. You can fine-tune your field of view, tweak the camera's position, and set up your perspective exactly how you like it. These options are, I'm going to say, they're pretty standard these days, but it's always nice to have that kind of flexibility to make the experience even more enjoyable. So I followed the previous advice, set up the car on softs, loaded one of the stages, and started driving. I tested several cars on a few different stages, but mostly I focused on whales. So I took the Lancia out, and I quickly learned that mistakes are quite easy to make if you don't pay close attention to your pace notes. And this isn't the type of game where you can just drive however you like. You really need to pay close attention to what your co-driver is saying, and I gotta say it, you need to stay focused. And what stood out for me was how natural the driving really feels. The connection between the car, the road, and your inputs, it just clicks. Even though I have never driven a real rally car, it gave me that immersive feeling of just being a part of the machine. So switching to newer cars made it even more obvious how different each car feels. The handling, the braking, the cornering, the weight transfer, they do vary massively. So you can't just treat all the cars in the same way. and that's what I believe makes this sim racing title so special. Of course, every rally has its own challenges, and mistakes are inevitable, especially near the finish line, and I do have to say it, I made my fair share of them, but I guess that's the fun part of it. Another thing that is actually worth mentioning is how reactive you need to be while you're driving. You constantly need to make those really subtle corrections, adjusting your inputs to keep the car balanced, and that's what really makes this sim so special, and it just makes it feel so alive. So the amount of feedback you're getting from the road is genuinely impressive, and the force feedback system is, I would say that it's already in the great shape for such an early build, even though they have been working on this for the last 3 years. You can really feel every bump, every surface change, and exactly how the car responds to your steering, throttle, and your braking. It just gives you a clear sense of what the car really needs in each moment and what you need to do to, stay on the track most of the time, and how much that steering angle you need to apply to keep that ideal line. And also the driving feedback and overall control precision deserves a lot of praise. I mean, considering this is not even the final version, it's already performing at a very, very high level. There still needs to be some development out there, but even in the current form, AC Rally delivers what most sim racing titles never really delivered, and that's like that realistic and deeply satisfying experience. Another aspect I found really, really impressive in AC Rally is how much the car reacts to bumps and surface changes. Every car behaves differently, and each one needs to be driven in its own very unique way. So when you switch from one car to another, you can immediately feel the difference. It's not that type of a game where, you just jump from one category to another and you barely feel any kind of difference and you just get used to the car straight away. No, that's not it. You really need to understand what the car is capable of and what it can actually handle, and how much punishment it can really take before it gets unsettled and basically you're in the woods. So I had a few runs where I just learned this in a very hard way. Some ended badly, but they really taught me that every car demands a unique driving style. The handbrake, for example, should only be used when necessary. Overusing it, it will basically cost you a lot of time and basically the car will just start to slide. However, in slow corners, a quick pull really helps you to rotate the car just enough to keep that momentum going and just basically like slide your way out of the corner, which is sometimes very satisfying. The braking model is another standout. When you press the brakes, it just feels like the car is about to stop, but I guess it usually doesn't. So you need to manage the slides through each corner using small controlled drifts just to get that advantage. If you don't do that, you will quickly find yourself off the pace or in the woods most of the time. So adapting to different surfaces and weather conditions is just as important. The moment I switched conditions, it completely changed the way that the car behaved. Slippery surfaces are genuinely slippery and challenging. You need to be careful or you will end up in a ditch and you will have to restart your stage. So the game doesn't really forgive sloppy driving. You really need that patience, precision, and a good understanding of your pace notes. I'm not a hardcore rally driver myself, so it took me some time to get used to it. But trust me, when they say do not cut, really do not cut. You'll hit a bump, launch into the air, and completely wreck your car. And I've done it multiple times. So yeah, I know. Grip levels on both tarmac and gravel are still being refined based on real-world data, and they will most likely improve before the final release. The same goes for crash physics and the damage system, which is still in development. But even with that, the way that the car deforms and really takes that damage already feels very, very solid and believable, adding that kind of extra layer of realism to every single run. And overall, I spent quite a bit of time in other stages, but most of my time I spend in Wales, really trying to learn the layout and find the best possible lines. And after a few runs, you really start to understand the flow of the track and where the limit is. But you can never really be completely sure that every run is going to go the same way. Something is always going to change. Maybe you will clip slight bump, you will go slightly off the line, or you will approach the next turn in a slightly different way. And honestly, I guess that's the beauty of rallying. It's about reacting in that moment and really adapting to what the road gives you. And of course, learning the locations is very important if you want to be quick. You need to know where the tricky corners are and, well, basically what to avoid and how the surfaces change. But what I really enjoyed was that the constant connection to the car. It just gave me the confidence to push harder when I needed to. So just to really find that limit of grip and, I guess, just trust the car. The game physics and overall handling system supports that feeling perfectly. And I don't think I'm over-exaggerating in that way. So it is worth noting that this isn't a full release yet. So event medals, AI performance, some kind of balancing still is out there in development. So some of the aspects of the game will definitely change in the future, and I do hope for the better. But I do have to say that I really like how this game introduces each car. There is a bit of history behind it, a proper presentation, and I guess a clear focus on these iconic racing machines. And I mean, it's a small touch, but it shows really that respect towards the sport and that heritage. And adds, I mean, personally to me, it adds a lot of character to the overall experience. Overall, I would say, I mean, even when I spoke to the developers, this isn't a title by some random group of developers just experimenting, I guess, in making a racing game. But when I spoke to them, they shared their real-world rally experience. Some of them even drove a real rally car. And I guess that knowledge clearly shaped the way this sim feels. They took what they learned on the stages and really brought it into the game. And the result is something genuinely special. So AC Rally feels authentic. It feels really precise and built on passion, in my opinion. So it's really well made, and it could easily stand out as the official WRC title, but I guess it just needs a little bit more content and polish. But even in this early access form, it's one of the best rally experiences that I've ever tried. And I do have to say this, the developers really deserve a lot of credit for what they have achieved so far. You can let me know what you think about this title and if you're going to get it or not. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.